I don't know why I went to. Okay.
We were
Got
really
it.
with it today.
No, I'm totally. You're the IT guru. Nice
Oh,
work.
yeah,
5 minutes late.
You should do it.
Yep. Be on time.
Oh my God.
Yeah. See, Kelly, I
you're
usually get
exhausting
on
me.
early and I check everything to make it all work. So Elizabeth just strolls in.
Oh yeah.
And
you're just lucky that my mic's working today. My earphones are on.
I know. I am surprised. This is one of your better starts. So. All right. So Kelly, we're going to run through our back and forth banter and some intro, and we'll introduce you. And Elizabeth, I didn't see in our notes, but we should just hand it over and say, hey, give us a brief kind of bio, right? Where do you live? How old are you?
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, that's fine.
We don't need to know her age.
Oh yeah, we do. No, did I say age? That's a
yeah. You got how old are you? I'm like, dude.
Right. See, that's like so
I don't mind. It's not a big deal.
I run this company that has like 500 people in it, and HR always tells me you can't ask them the name or their age. And I was like, how old are you? What's the big deal? They're like, you can't do that. I'm like, okay. All right, Lizzo, you ready?
Yeah, it's recording, so we're good.
Okay. And keep in mind, Kelly, if we want to repeat anything, we can. It'll all get edited into a nice flowing podcast. So, and our producer has his hands full with Lizzo and I. So,
last time in the notes, I said there are a lot of edits because Chris keeps messing up.
Yeah. So not true. Okay, ready?
Yeah.
As you can see, I'm in my apartment too with my coat on because I got chills and all this stuff.
Oh, well, it's 85 degrees where I'm at. So
yeah.
Well, I have chills because of that COVID shot.
That's right.
Do you get it? Yeah. Chills and Chilson?
Chilson. Yeah, there you go. Yes.
All right. Okay. Ready, Lizzo?
Yeah.
1, 2, 3. Hello, everyone. This is Chris and Lizzo.
We are a brother-sister team.
On behalf of the Charcot-Marie Tooth Association, aka CMTA, we are coming at you.
Coming at you from coast to coast. I live in California and Chris lives in Vermont.
That's right. And this is another fantastic episode of our famous podcast named what, Lizzo?
CMT, the number 4, me. CMT for me.
You got it. CMT for me, a comprehensive podcast that covers all aspects of CMT, the voice of individuals living with CMT, their challenges, and more importantly, their inspirational stories. This is a podcast dedicated to spreading CMT awareness through the eyes of those with CMT. Okay, Lizzo, before we get going, I got to tell you, it is opposite day. Remember opposite day?
My second grade?
Yeah, it's opposite day. So I am moving our standard closing to the beginning of the podcast. I'm changing things up. So here we go. You know, folks, it takes a lot of money to fund research in order to find a cure for CMT. If someone was so inclined to generously donate to our cause, please go to cmtausa.org. We want to hear from you.
Yeah, so don't forget to mention the CMT for Me podcast if you do indeed donate, so we can get a shout out, you know. And so since this is opposite day and I didn't know it was opposite day, I guess I'm supposed to say, so to our listeners, do you have a good story? Would you like to tell your story on the CMT for Me podcast? Write to us, info@cmtausa.org, and pitch your idea. We do want to hear from you.
You got it. Lizzo, the other item I was thinking about, I really want to increase the number of listeners we have, further engage the community, sis. So if anyone has any thoughts, please send your ideas to Lizzo and not me. She can be reached at elizabetho@outlook.com.
Oh, geez. Thanks for that. But do reach out to me. cycleforcmt.com. Oh, that's not your email.
Okay.
It's at gmail.com.
We have no idea what she's talking about right now, but go ahead, Lizzo. Mark, exclude all of that. Lizzo's messing up.
Today, we are going to interview a physical therapist with CMT. I love interviewing people oh my gosh. Okay, let me just start all over. All right.
Kelly, it usually goes a lot smoother than this.
I'm nervous myself. So.
I'm not nervous.
We're not nervous. We're just messing up.
We're just tongue-tied.
Yeah.
Today, we're going to interview a physical therapist with CMT. I just love interviewing people in a particular profession with CMT. It's like getting an insider's view.
That's cool. But I want to talk about myself. One more item. So one more item. I'm feeling a little groggy today, slightly tired with a few aches as I received my second COVID booster last night. So be patient with me. All right. If I doze off, that's, I'm not dozing off because I'm not interested. But by tomorrow, I will transition to Superman.
Dude,
totally unstoppable. So anyways, what are we doing here today?
Oh my God, you're so out of it. You have the chills. You're sitting at home with your jacket. You don't look good. You're exhausted. Today, dude, we are interviewing a physical therapist with CMT.
Got it. Now I'm with you. Johan has been to physical therapy, right? How about you, Lizzo?
Oh my God. Of course I have. With all my physical ailments, PT is a way of life for me. I have a lifetime subscription to physical therapy. But how about you? No, I want to talk about you.
Yeah, perfect. I love this.
Did you go to PT when you accidentally did the splits trying to compete with Warren on rollerblades or something?
No, negative. And it was not on rollerblades. I tore my groin, but I did not have to go to PT. That's, one of those things you do when you're 45 years old and you go up the highest skateboard ramp and turn around and do a split. That was really nice. But I did have PT when I broke my femur, the humerus bone as well, and my ACL. I have a lot of respect for those physical therapists. They've helped me out in the past.
Yeah, so let's get to it here. So lots of people in the CMT community need PT. They don't know where to turn. They don't know where to go. It's really hard to find a PT who knows about CMT.
Well, today, folks, we are interviewing Kelly Chilson, DSC, DPT, COMT, who's been practicing for 15 years with a focus on orthopedics and have worked in a vestibular and balance specialty for the past 5 years. I am so happy that I was able to pronounce vestibular, and hopefully that is the right pronunciation. She also has just had reconstructive surgery on her foot.
Wait a minute. What the heck does DSC, DPT, COMT mean?
Well,
what does it mean?
No clue. I just thought it sounded really impressive. So let's ask Kelly. Hey, Kelly, welcome to the podcast.
Welcome,
Thank
Kelly.
You.
It's really nice to have you on. What do those abbreviations mean?
What is that?
I just have to be official, I guess, but I have 2 doctorates in PT. So I have a doctoral in science degree, and then I also have a entry-level doctorate degree, and I'm an orthopedic manual therapist. So it's another certification that you can get.
Why have 1 doctorate when you can get 2?
Well, one of the reasons I have 2 is because I'm very interested in teaching and working in a education environment, partly because I won't be able to do this job forever physically. So,
Kelly, let's hear a little bit more about you, since I don't know what that meant. You can't do it physically, but you have CMT. Is that what you meant? CMT 1A. But where do you live? Where do you practice? Do you have any kids?
Yes, I live in Southern California. I have 3-year-old twins, so they keep me very busy.
3-year-old twins. You are a busy lady.
Yes, yes. And I am staying at home with them right now, but I do work kind of like a as-needed job right now at a clinic that specializes in vestibular and balance types of problems. But I have worked in orthopedics for most of my career. So I say physically because it's a physically demanding job. I have to be on my feet all the time. I'm helping other people who aren't able to do as much as me sometimes, physically being able to help them with their balance, people who don't have very good balance, is a challenge myself. Right. And so just the physical demands of the job. Sometimes I have to help people in and out of their wheelchairs or in and out of other things, or help them, be able to balance, when they're using different assistive devices and things like that. So I say I won't be able to do this physically for forever because I've noticed just some decline in my abilities to do those things over the years. And so part of my thought process was that, I'm still very smart and intellectual, and I have, my brain function is very good.
Yeah.
So I said, you know what, like if I want to go into a teaching environment where I can, teach, and I love that. I love being involved in that type of environment too. So my thought process was to sort of pursue a degree that would allow me to kind of transition into that.
Yeah. And that's cool. That is great.
If that time comes. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, folks, we have a teacher on the podcast. You are going to learn a lot today. And one thing, Kelly, too, I'll say, I'm sure, and speaking for probably those with CMT, someone like yourself practicing physical therapy, I'm sure our patients, et cetera, are very, very fortunate to have you and others in that field. And as we will learn, I'm sure PT is really important in terms of providing individuals with CMT a better life and having them navigate through some of these challenges. So let's hear more. You reached out to us, Kelly.
Yes.
And which was really cool. We had a pre-interview with you, and you sent us a list of things that you wanted to talk about, but you right out of the gate talked about See?
Oh, that was good.
I am on, folks. I am on today. See, even with the COVID booster, I'm still killing it. So what was your goal for this podcast?
I really wanted to provide some perspective from the side of being a PT. I think I've read a lot of comments and posts on the Facebook group, the CMTA Facebook group. And then just, in general, like there seems to be sort of either, confusion about what physical therapy will do for somebody, like what the expectations are, or there might be some sort of, I didn't get out of it what I wanted to get out of it, sort of some, negative outlook on, physical therapy.
Sure.
And I also wanted to, I can provide for some perspective from being a PT, but also having CMT. And I know the challenges of life with CMT, and but also, I did just recently have this surgery, and so maybe I can provide some advice on things to think about before you have your surgery, during, afterwards, not during, I guess, but afterwards, that might help you, try to maintain as much of your sanity after a surgery like this.
Well, let's start with that then. The foot surgery.
So I'm going to ask all the questions today. So
I was just trying to break in. First, I'd like to know, where are those 2 3-year-olds? Did you lock them in a closet or something?
We don't even hear them.
Yeah, this is a perfect time because they're taking a nap right now. So.
Oh, okay, good.
Yeah.
Now, getting back to your foot surgery. So before foot surgery, what do you do to prepare?
So I think the biggest things to think about are, think about, like, have you prepared your home environments to, make sure that you're going to be safe getting it in and around your house? Are you going to be able to, like, if you have children, if you have pets, make sure that you have the environment, sort of cleared away, safety wise, I guess, so like, are you able to get in and out of your rooms without things blocking it or things in the way? Can you get to your couch, to your bed, to the toilet, to the dining table, so making sure that you have things kind of, make enough room for, you might be using your crutches or a walker. You might be in a wheelchair. Do you have enough, space in your environment to get around and get to those things? But also, I guess, what I was going to say to that is that I actually practice several things. I advise my patients this too. Like, so I knew from the get-go that I was not going to be using crutches because I just don't have good balance for that. I've tried it in the past. It didn't work for me. Yeah. So I just knew from the get-go I was, and some people who feel like they can use crutches, great. Maybe you practice using those crutches for, a couple, 2-3 weeks before your surgery.
Absolutely. And maybe to gain some upper body strength, right?
Well, that too. Yeah. I mean, of course, your endurance, like I practiced, I knew I was going to be using a 4-wheeled walker. So I used that, but I practiced, hopping around on one foot.
That's a great idea. As
long
as
from my bed. Yeah. From my bed to the bathroom to the couch, right. I made sure I have a certain chair that I can sit in because it's a little bit higher up. Like I don't even bother to sit on my couch because I know it's too low. So, but I practice, can I get up and down from that chair with one foot,
So Chris, Kenny B, our friend, just had foot surgery.
I saw that on Facebook.
Yeah. As Kelly.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I think he did practice on his knee scooter, but he's been trying to scoot around a little bit too fast. He's crashed like 3 or 4 times. Just going to the bathroom.
Yeah. And it's something, I think it's a really good point because you mentioned Kelly as well, core strength, right? Preparing and doing some exercises to strengthen your core. And just listening to you, I think back when I had my ACL surgery, I never once thought about after I have this surgery, like, can I use crutches? What are the things? I never thought about setting up my room or, where you're pretty much going to be immobile for 7 to 10 days. It never even crossed my mind. So I think that's a great perspective, right? You can make this transition a lot better if you're thinking about these items and pre-planning.
Right. So yeah, strength is important too. You have to have that upper body strength to get up and down from your bed or from a chair, because you're going to be relying a lot more on your upper body and your core to do those things. If you were, doing that with 2 feet before, well, now you have only one leg to do that. So yeah.
And your kids are only 3. It's not like they can help you out.
I was going to say, maybe they just pin her down and jump on her and go, Mommy can't move. Woo.
I know.
They actually pet my cast and they like my cast and they pet it.
They do.
Okay. Do you let them draw on
like,
it?
oh, I like it, Mommy. Nice. I let them decorate it.
That's fun. Yeah. Arts and crafts with Mommy's cast.
Right.
Yes, that is perfect. I love it. The other one other question is when someone first goes to see a physical therapist, right? It's kind of like, what can they expect? And what are some of the questions you ask a new patient, right? Because I also think, for most people, seeing any type of doctor it's kind of, they're nervous, right? And, but anyways, what should one expect when they go to see a physical therapist?
Well, I know myself, I always try to ask the patient, what are your goals and what are your expectations? I think goals are number one. Not only is it that, as PTs, when we're documenting, writing goals is part of our everyday documentation.
Yeah.
Okay.
Have you seen people with CMT, Kelly?
I've had one patient and
what
he
was
had
that person's goals?
Well, he had a reconstructive surgery on his foot. And so it was my first time seeing anybody with CMT, but also, he had this surgery. And so there was a lot of, we had to work really, really slow. I think it was also, he was also somebody that I think maybe I'm assuming had some bad experiences in the past with PT, because he was very, very sort of on guard with me. And even when I said, hey, you know what, I have CMT too, he was still very on guard with me about that. So, his goals were obviously to be able to use his foot again. But we talked about, if you're having a lot of pain or a lot of fear of movement, like, we're going to have to start off very, very slow and easy and work our way up and at whatever rate you are able to do, both physically and maybe even mentally, so if you're
is that where people come to see a physical therapist? It's obvious after surgery, but are people just seeking out physical therapists just for kind of everyday life in terms of navigating through CMT, right?
Yeah, I would say yes. I would probably say, for the most part, most of your patients are coming in, before they've had any kind of surgery. They've had some decline in their balance or endurance or, their mobility. And so, they're struggling with, things that they weren't struggling with, a few months prior. And so, they're coming for, or maybe they're having pain that is, all of a sudden a new pain that they could manage before, and now they can't manage it anymore, or they, things like that. So, we're all sort of, I would, when you said about, some of the injuries you've had, I feel like we're all kind of weekend warriors in some respect.
Right.
It's like,
Right.
like even myself, like, in my head, I'm like, oh yeah, I could totally go do that 3-mile walk. And you push yourself and you do it, and afterwards you pay for it, right? Sometimes then we're in a lot of pain, and we try to manage that, and it's not going away. So then maybe you have to go seek a PT to say, hey, you know what? My, all of a sudden my foot or my knee or whatever starting to really bother me after I did this activity.
So along those same lines, so somebody comes in, say, they don't feel like their muscles are balanced, because in CMT there are strong muscles and then opposing muscles are weak. Can you strengthen, is your philosophy to strengthen the strong muscles and to strengthen the weakened muscles, or can you even strengthen the weakened muscles due to the nerves?
Well, you really can't strengthen the muscles if there's already enough, sort of nerve damage to it, so you need that nerve conduction to the muscle. And if you don't have that, then, but what I will say is that, like, I know, I just speaking for myself, like, I know where my weaknesses are, my right side tends to be my weaker side, so it's like I rely a lot more on my left side to sort of help me with things. If I need to do something where I have to get up and down from the floor or something, I do that a lot in my work. Actually, I rely on my left side to do that for me. So it's like, I'm sitting there trying to strengthen as much as I can, with the muscles that I do. I have, well, what I want to say is, I think it comes down to sort of, let's say strengthen the muscles that you are strongest with. So, and that I would say typically with CMT, and this is not all types of CMT, but I think a lot of CMT, we're looking at more of the sort of like the peripheral muscles. So we're talking about more of like your hands and your feet tend to be more of kind of the weaker muscles. That tends to be, the nerve function is going to decline the most rapidly in those areas. But when it comes to a lot of things that we're doing as far as movement, we use our larger muscle groups to move anyway. Our glutes, our core, our, thigh muscles, we use those muscles a lot to be able to get up and down from things, to be able to, stand and balance and things like that. So, I just think about it as, even though we've got some, decline in function there, I think about this too. I tell people, my hands and feet don't work very well, but think about somebody who has an amputee, right? They still stand and walk, and they have, a prosthetic limb. They don't have feet sometimes, but they're still able to get up and move around because they're using their larger muscle groups, that they can utilize. Their, like I said, their hips, their glutes, their abs, right? They still have those muscle groups available to use, and they use those a lot to move around. So I kind of use that analogy sometimes, to kind of depending on it, but I think about that myself because I'm like, I have a foot, I still have a foot there, but I have other muscle groups that I can use to help me move around when my foot and ankle is really weak.
I would think also it's, I think it's rare that there's a physical therapist that has CMT, right, that can engage with a patient that has CMT.
Right.
And I would imagine, and we hear this all the time, even as I said at the beginning of the podcast, we're trying to spread awareness about CMT. There must be a number of folks with CMT that see a physical therapist and at times get frustrated that they don't really know what CMT is. Do you have any comments on that?
Well, here's what I want to say to that. Yes, I do have a few comments. I think my biggest thing to think about is that, it's true that you'll probably go to a PT and it's true they probably have never heard of CMT, right? I even, if I remember back when I was in school, we probably had a 2-minute lecture on CMT. And of course I knew what it was because I live with it. But The thing is, like, I always tell, and I try to tell everybody that, we PTs are used to being educating ourselves as well. So, it's a great thing. Bring in some education materials to the PTs. I would think most PTs would be glad to read and say, oh, okay, now you know a little bit more about CMT now. But I think the other thing is also thinking about, like, I think everybody who goes to a PT has some kind of special considerations, whether you have CMT or you have other things going on. So you have to really be an advocate for yourself. And I try to strive, and I know it's sometimes sort of, maybe it's scary, it makes you nervous. I know that I've had people in my family that won't say anything to their doctor, even though they should, but same thing with the PT. I think it's communicating with the PT, that's why I said setting your goals and expectations the first visit too, saying, hey, you know what, I'm here because I want to work on my balance. I'm here because, I want to work on my strength. I'm here because I'm having this foot pain or knee pain, and I really want to focus on that. So, having some of that education aside on what CMT is, but also focusing on, what are your true expectations and goals? Can you, sort of, become eye to eye with the PT and say, all right, hey, this is want to work. Okay. You want to work on your balance? Okay. Yeah. Like, you're going to be able to, somebody with CMT is going to have balance problems, but so a lot of people with a lot of other neurological conditions. Right. And so it's like, okay, when you come to your first visit with the PT, they're going to do an evaluation. They're going to see where your balance is. And I think some of the comments I've read too, people are like, oh, they had me do these kind of crazy things on my balance, and right. Yeah, some of the things might look sort of like, they want me to do what?
Right. Right.
So I understand. Yeah. So, you may, if you attempt something and you fail, or you just say, hey, to the PT, like, hey, nope, I don't think I can do that, then yeah, sometimes you got to speak up a little bit. And I know that may not be exactly easy, but speaking up and say, you know what, that exercise you gave me is too difficult. I can't do that. Like, it hurts. I have pain, or I might fall, or,
Right. So it sounds like, you want to be, you want to be part of the solution, right? And it's really a team approach with the physical therapist and the patient. Right.
So Kelly, are there any fancy letters after a PT's name, like you have, that indicates neuromuscular knowledge or a neuromuscular degree, because CMT is neuromuscular? So do you go after that? And what are those letters?
So yeah, a lot of PTs have like special certifications that they receive, after they graduate from a program. There is a neurological certified specialist, NCS. So they might be somebody who might, I did not get that one, but there are, they specialize more in balance and, see lots of different neurological types of conditions. I would say myself, I focused a lot more on orthopedics and more pain management. So, I have a manual therapy background. And so I've focused a lot of time on, sort of hands-on manual therapy, pain management, that type of aspect. But my hands have become sort of a little more difficult to use. So that got more difficult for me to keep practicing. So I found a vestibular clinic that, I started working more on balance and inner ear type dysfunctions. And so I've kind of moved more towards that because I had harder, so it was, we got to adapt to life. Right.
Right. Right. And Liz, so I think it's very obvious. I'm thinking of your question, neuromuscular certification. It's NMC. Right.
Oh, right.
So, or
it is not. You're just making stuff up.
It's PM. C certificate. I can't believe you don't know that.
I know. And when I'm going to ask another really silly question, Chris. Okay. I should just ask.
I'll answer it for you.
But I will ask Kelly.
If you want me to take this one, I can do it.
I'm trying to answer. Hopefully,
What website? Is there a website you'd go to find a PT near you that has a neuromuscular specialty?
I suggest you can go on the American Physical Therapy Association, APTA
Oh, Chris was
website.
about to say that, APTA.
Of course.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you can narrow down by your state and specialty on that website. So
Can I
you can
find
narrow
you
it
on
down.
there?
I believe so.
Okay. We'll check it out.
Okay.
So
Yes, Lizzo.
I was wondering, Kelly, are there other things that you work with? I mean, is it just exercise that's important, or do you deal with people's depression too? I know you're not a psychologist, or, anxiety or nutrition. And I have all these questions: nutrition, anxiety, mental health, and then OT. Is that the same as PT? Occupational therapist, and what's the difference? So I have like 100
There
questions.
You go.
In
Hey,
one.
there you go, folks.
Just
4
keep
questions
talking.
in one sentence.
Keep talking
so,
for 20 minutes.
Yeah, perfect.
Well, what I will say to your first question is that I think every PT, everybody, PTs, we spend a lot of one-on-one time with our patients. And so, when you go to your primary care, you're given 5 minutes and you're out the door. But at PTs, we spend a lot of one-on-one time. So we get to know our patients quite well usually. And so when it comes to sort of somebody's, mental health and their nutritional health and their wellness, that stuff comes up all the time. And, no, I'm not a mental health, specialty. But I will say that, that is a big part of sort of what you'll get out of your physical therapy. If you are, if you're depressed about, not being able to do the things you were doing, a few months before, a few years before, or you're, having a lot more, or you're having pain, your mental health is probably going to be affected by that, of course. And so, trying to work with somebody, not on their physical side, but trying to help their mental health as much as possible, trying to give as much sort of, I guess, advice, or, having somebody really say, hey, maybe you work with a mental health professional and a PT together, right, to try to manage, what's going on, nutritional health, things like that. You got to put in your body what you want out of it. Our muscles and our nerves are going to, don't function as well if we're not putting the nutrients that we need into our body, whether you have CMT or not. So, if you're, and especially as you add exercise to your routine, you need to make sure that you are getting the right nutrients to your body. Are you staying hydrated?
Right.
All my patients, I was like, when's the last time you've had water? And, I'd say 90% of my patients are looking at, they look at me like, drink water? Like that's a foreign concept, It's like, yeah, so it's like, are you staying hydrated? It's a big part of it. Your muscle function, I think a lot of people, if they're athletes, they sort of understand that, they have a better understanding of that. But just because you're not an athlete doesn't mean you don't need water and you don't need,
right,
good food for your body. So, if you, it might help to work with, a nutritionist too, or whatever, especially if you have other, comorbidities. If you're diabetic, or you have other heart disease, or, if you've got maybe some lung or breathing issues, that go along with your CMT, that's going to affect your physical ability to, do things, in PT or exercise. But, your recovery, if you're not staying hydrated and if you're not eating nutritionally well, then, you're going to have a lot more problems with that recovery time. You're probably going to have a lot more muscle soreness, than you might have if you kind of keep up with that. So,
and Kelly, how do you stay active? I mean, other than chasing your 3-year-old kids around the house? So.
Well, I have found that for me, like I'm able to swim,
great,
for 30-minute periods. And I do really well with that. I don't usually have any issues with that. I also like to bike ride when I can. I will say that, I was thinking about that too. I was listening to one of your other podcasts talking about cycling. And I was like, I think one of my biggest issues with it is like my balance too, is like,
right,
when I'm stepping down from the bike, like I'm worried that I'm going to fall over. So it's like, sometimes I don't go out and cycle as much as I want to because I'm afraid more of the balance aspect, but I can swim and I have, no issues with that. I'm also, I've been hula dancing for probably 25 years of my life. So I'm able to do that. I love to do that. It's, it's very, sort of mentally relaxing for me too.
How did you get into hula dancing?
I started, just going to dance classes when I was a kid, and I tried to do ballet and tap and tried to participate in those things because, you're a kid and you want to do what everybody else is doing. And I tried to participate in that. And I just had a lot of, I wasn't coordinated. My balance wasn't very good. And so the dance studio offered hula dancing, and I would watch them. And I told my mom, hey, I want to try that out. And she was like, okay. And so I started doing that as a child. And I just have found groups as I've gotten older, for adults now. So
do you have to wear a grass skirt?
Well, when I was younger, I did Tahitian, but that's more the grass skirt. So hula, hula is more of, kind of the, usually like the cloth skirts. It's much more slow and that's right.
Right. One thing on this whole discussion about staying active, I really feel the takeaway is it ties directly into the mental health component. Right. If you're staying active, like I think of myself when I'm really busy, like it's really important for me to get out and do something. I kind of clear my head. So, and the things that you're engaged in, right? Even people with CMT, you may not be able to do the things you've done in the past, but there are other things out there where you can stay active. Right. Right. And I think that benefits your overall well-being. So.
Yeah, I mean, just get outside. Like even if, some people I know can get out and garden, that's still an active thing to do, or, fish or do something, like find something that you're able to do and stay active, because human beings, we're meant to move. Like that's what we were built for. And so, when you can't do the things that you used to do, that can be, it's sort of, it can be depressing. I get it. I wrote here in my self-note, I said, it's almost like experiencing grief, I think.
Sure.
Like you don't lose a loved one, but you lose the ability to do something that you loved before. So turning that into something else that you enjoy, that keeps you active, I think is so important for, your physical being and, as we age too.
Yeah.
Do you go out and tell people about CMT? Are you open with it? Do you tell other physical therapists? Are you starting like a whole call center where people call you about CMT and you're out there?
This is what she does. You're going to be a full-time.
Because if you don't, I want you to talk to me afterwards so we can get that going.
Well, I haven't done a lot of it, but just even at work, people are very observant. I've had plenty of patients that will kind of look at me and go, you kind of walk kind of funny, ask me about, or just general public, I go out somewhere and, I look different when I walk and, things like that. And so people will ask me about it. And I'm open about talking about it. I think anybody else has a challenge too. I tell them the name, they look at me and, is it a problem with your teeth? Is it,
right.
You always get those comments,
And what I'm hoping is, we're just going to get your address and say it on the podcast, and everyone's going to start showing up at your house and having meetings with you.
As long as they're willing to put in if they want to do some childcare for me, sure.
There you go. Right. So win-win.
Maybe you can do a trade-off of PT.
Right.
So Kelly, one thing I was thinking about, and I know there's varying degrees of CMT, but are there common type of stretches or common, I don't know what I want to say, physical therapy? Are there common exercises that physical therapists recommend for people with CMT, or is it just kind of all over the map based on your condition?
I think it it kind of depends on, really what, what you
want to get out of it.
But
right.
What do you want to get out of it? The thing is, speaking from my personal experience, I spend at least 15 minutes every evening doing a set of stretches, like pretty religiously, because I know that they help me. So, I maybe don't have anything specific. It probably depends on each person, but, a lot of this is, when you got to think about maintenance too, right? And so if you go to a PT and maybe learn some stretches and things like that, you got to think about doing these things probably long term, not just, for those 6 to 8 weeks that you're seeing a PT. You got to think about your maintenance too. I consistently, have really tight, muscles in my calf and my hamstrings, and, things like that. And so I know that if I don't do those stretches every single day, I'm hurting. I'm not moving as well, and so it's like I try to be as consistent as possible to try to maintain as much of that mobility as I can possibly do, to keep me moving, yeah.
And so what is the difference between physical therapy and occupational therapy? Because OT is for your hands and other things. And can you see a PT for your hands?
Yeah. Oh, yes. So occupational therapy kind of came about. They sort of the idea behind occupational therapy is they call ADLs, activities of daily living. And so that kind of came about as a specialty more for, maybe more fine motor activity. So, opening, writing, any kind of fine motor activities with your hands. PTs also see lots of different hand, elbow, shoulder. The OTs, I think right now are kind of looked at as more of like the upper extremity specialty. But it's true that, PTs, we treat anything muscular related, from the jaw down to your feet. So,
okay.
But I would say that if you're having more difficulty with like maybe gripping or like I said, opening, closing, writing, those kind of fine motor activities, OTs are probably more specialized in that. That's like in your kind of your outpatient environment and in sort of the hospital environment, since we're going there. Like OTs are usually more involved with sort of somebody being able to dress themselves, being able to put, shirt, pants, shoes, and socks.
Yeah.
And they have lots of those devices to help you get your socks on, or, help you get dressed, or, those kinds of things. Where a PT might say, hey, you got dressed. Okay, now can you get up out of your bed? Let me, So we're more like gross motor sort of, can you get out of the chair? Can you get from the wheelchair to the toilet, or, things like that. In the outpatient environment, the PT is going to see you more for, those larger movements, or it may be your balance, or maybe, like I've said before, your balance or endurance, or, some general strengthening. But yeah, I've worked with people that have, let's say shoulder, elbow, hand injuries, or surgeries and things like that. But if somebody is coming in for more neurological types of dysfunctions with their hand, they probably would be better to see at OT, because they just have more of that specialty mind, but they also have a lot of different, adaptive pieces of equipment.
Yeah.
Right.
I
just
think
have
that
one
they're
more
more
question.
familiar with.
I'm sorry, Kelly, I talked right over you. I have one more question. I usually
she has
do that
4
anyway.
more questions. Sorry.
Into one.
I don't even know if we answered the 4 she asked last time.
We did.
Oh,
we did. Or Kelly did, rather. She has a good memory. Are there any people that look at you because you walk differently, or you have CMT, that don't want to see you, or they have a problem with that? And how do you deal with it?
I have experienced that in the past. I've sort of found that strange, I guess, because, I've worn, in the past, I've worn AFOs. I've had leg braces, in the past and at work, and people see that I have an AFO on, and they look at me and they're like, you're going to help me, but look at you, you've got these braces on your legs. And I'm like, so I'm still intellectually there. I know what I'm, I'm still able to move around, and because of these braces, I'm still able to work as a PT.
Practice.
So I guess I just try to look at it from that aspect. When people kind of give me these negative, like, how are you going to be able to help me when you're, in this condition? I say, hey, you know what? Like, I have these things to help me maintain. I can still work as a PT because I'm wearing this leg brace, and because so I think that's just kind of saying, hey, like this is what keeps me going.
And I was thinking about like, who else would help them? I mean, you can be in their shoes, or you can know some of the struggles, or, how it feels to have this or that or this, right? So from that angle, it's a blessing, really.
Yeah, that's what I always thought. And I've tried to be an inspiration to, other people too. But yeah, I just found it kind of strange, and I don't look at it negatively. I just kind of look at them like, well, I think I can help you still. Like I'm
Good. Yeah.
I do what I need to do to adapt myself to practice safely. If I have somebody that, has a lot of balance problems and I don't feel like I'm safe with them, like I have found ways to work within that. So that I'm safe and that they're safe too.
You don't take it personally. So that's great.
Mm-hmm. Kelly, you're doing an awesome job.
Thank you.
Right? Really, I'm sure the community is fortunate, and your insight today on the podcast is great. And I'm looking at the time, we're kind of coming to a close, but I always like to ask the question kind of in closing is, Kelly, what advice do you have for the CMTA community from where you sit today and your experiences?
Right. Well, I thought about that, and I wanted just to say this. Just recently, there was a post on the Facebook page about what kinds of things can you do, and so people had all kinds of comments. Instead of focusing on what they can't do, focusing on things that they can do, and I love that, and it speaks to me because I have found myself many times thinking about the can'ts, but what's really lifted my spirits and kept me moving forward in life is thinking about the things that I can do. So my biggest advice is, as much as possible, write down, talk to people, talk about the things that you can do, especially when your mind starts to wander into that can't mode. Like, what can I do today? I may not be able to do this, but what can I do today or tomorrow that will, help me move forward in life?
Perfect.
And
that's awesome.
Yeah. Wow. That's great advice.
Very, very impressive. Very impressive. Well, Lizzo, what do you think? You think we're getting to a wrap here?
Yeah, it's getting late, and she has so much. I mean, every one of those topics we could spend an hour on.
I know. That's the downside of the podcast here, but very great information. Kelly, thanks so much for being on this.
Well, thank you for having me.
Pleasure having you.
Yeah, awesome.
So, hey, Lizzo, kind of an overlap with the intro, but we're doing it again for consistency. If someone wants to learn more about CMT and or to donate to our cause, where should they go?
CMTAUSA.org. And there's a lot of information, and there are a lot of resources there.
You got it. Really, folks, go to the site, save this as a bookmark. There's ongoing information posted and plenty of info for you to learn more about CMT.
Hey, if you're listening to this podcast and you'd like to be on a podcast and you have a good story to share, contact us. Write an email to info@cmtausa.org. Pitch your idea and we'll reach out to you.
That's awesome. Lizzo, I'm really excited. Guess what?
What?
Do you know the 9th annual Cycle for CMT event is scheduled the in-person on August 28th, 2022 in Charlotte, Vermont?
I do. Our in-person signature event.
That's right. This event was started back in 2014 by Lizzo and I. And fortunately, through our participants, we've been able to raise $1.7 million for research in hopes of finding a cure for CMT. So this is an incredible event. If you would like to join us in Vermont, you can again reach out to Lizzo only, not me, at info@cmtausa.org. Or if you can't make it to Vermont, you can participate by doing a virtual cycle event anywhere in the country. And I think last year, Lizzo, we had probably, I think it was 36 states represented in our event.
Yeah, and growing. I mean, we have a guy in Wisconsin and somebody in Ohio and somebody else. So I mean, there are virtual rides all over the country, and that site is cycleforcmt.com.
Awesome.
And we have a great new promo video you guys got to watch.
Yep, totally.
Right.
So go to that site, cycleforcmt.com. So before we sign off, Lizzo, I've got a joke.
Oh,
you want to hear it?
Here we go.
Okay. A professional baseball player comes into the clinic with a limp. What's wrong? Asked the physical therapist. He says, I took too many walks.
I got one.
All right, let it rip.
Too. We're on the same wavelength. Where do people in Egypt go for physical therapy?
No idea.
Kelly?
No idea.
To a chiropractor. Chiro.
Oh, isn't that good?
Chiro.
All right. Well, listen, with those jokes, Lizzo, I think we better stick with the podcast and the Cycle for CMT event. Our jokes are pretty lame, and Kelly probably feels the same way. So until next time, folks, we'll talk to you later.
Yeah. Bye-bye. Thank you so much, Kelly. Bye-bye. Have a good day.
Bye. Thank you. Hopefully it turns out okay.
It's
great.
great.
So,
okay. All right. Thank you.
Lizzo, you want to stop the recording?
No.
Geez, stop the recording.